Good morning. Good to be with you today. We're going to be in Ecclesiastes chapter 5 and 6. If you have your Bibles, I encourage you to open up with us. If you don't have a Bible with you, would encourage you to look under the seat in front of you for a hardback black one and open up and follow along with us. If you don't own a Bible, that is our gift to you. There is a old Chinese fable about a stonecutter. He lives a humble life. He lives in a small house, and he goes out every day and he cuts stone. And he brings these large pieces of stone back, and every so often the merchant comes by and he sells the stone to the merchant. And he is happy with his humble life. And one day while he is out, he finds a cricket, and he keeps this cricket as a pet, and he treats it well. And after a few weeks, the cricket reveals that, in fact, it is a powerful spirit, and it can grant him anything his heart desires. And it's going to do that for him because it appreciates the humility that it has shown, the stonecutter has shown. It appreciates how well the cricket has been cared for. And so this powerful spirit says, I'll grant you anything your heart desires. The stonecutter thinks about it, and he says, well, I'm really fairly happy in my life, but whenever that merchant comes to town, man, I'm just always amazed by the nice things he has, the nice clothes he wears, and he gets to travel around and buy and sell all these fancy things. He goes, I really want to be a wealthy merchant. Can you make me a wealthy merchant? And the Spirit does this. It grants him his wish. He becomes a wealthy merchant, and he travels around and buys and sells fine exotic goods, and he's quite happy with his life and all his fine things until one day he gets a call from a prince. And the prince wants the merchant to come to his palace and to show him the nicest things he has, because the prince wants to add to his collection. And upon arriving at the prince's palace, he's just amazed at the servants the prince has and the palace that he gets to live in. And he realizes that the prince has it better off than the merchant does. Not only does he have wealth, but he has power. And so he wishes to be a prince, and the Spirit grants him his wish and makes him a prince. And he loves the power that he now has and the servants that will wait on him hand and foot. But one day the king calls. And the king has all the princes of the land come together to pay homage. And as he's there and he sees all the princes bowing down and giving gifts and paying homage to the king, he realizes that the king has it better than the princes do. The king is more powerful than all of them. And so he wishes to be the king. And the Spirit makes him the king over all the land. And he gives account to no one. And everyone has to come before him and bow before him and pay him honor and respect whenever he demands it. He answers to no one. But one summer day, he is outside, and in the blistering heat, he can do nothing to escape the oppressive heat of the sun. And he realizes that for all the power and wealth that he has as the king, the weather is outside of his control. The mighty oppressive heat of the sun is beyond even his power, and so he wishes to be the sun. And he becomes the sun. And he is shining down on the earth, and where he chooses to shine light, things prosper. Where he brings oppressive heat, things suffer, and he has power over the face of the earth. Until one day a thundercloud rolls in. And he can't shine light on the earth. The cloud is shading everything, and he becomes enraged. And he realizes the thundercloud is better off than the sun, and he wishes to become the thundercloud. And he becomes the thundercloud, and he can block out the sun when he wants to. He can send life-giving rain. He can send torrential floods. And he sends torrential floods on lands that he wants to punish, and as he wipes away everything in his path, he sees that the mountain is yet standing. And despite the rain and the water he sends, he cannot wipe away the mountain. It is immovable. And he concludes the mountain is the mightiest thing on the earth, and he wishes to become the mountain. And for many years, he is content as the mountain. Until one day, clink, 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 along comes a stonecutter. Chipping, chipping, chipping away at the base of the mountain. And he breaks down and he weeps, and he realizes the futility of this quest that he has been on. And he says to the Spirit, I am so wrong. Just let me go back to my life as a stonecutter. I had it best off when I was just happy with what I had then, but before I began embarking on this journey, always trying to find more. As we're walking through the book of Ecclesiastes, we're looking at someone else's journey through life, trying to always find more, trying to always find satisfaction. As we're looking through the book of Ecclesiastes, we meet the author who calls himself the preacher. And so as I say the preacher this morning, I'm referring to the author of Ecclesiastes, not myself, in the second person. And as we follow along with the preacher, he's gone on this journey looking for meaning in life. He's examining all things under the sun being a common phrase he uses to describe life on earth. And he goes and he looks for wealth, and he looks for pleasure, and he looks for success, and he looks for wisdom, and he tries out everything that he can get his hands on, trying to say, what is the meaning of life? What is the point of all of these things? And his conclusion as he examines everything under the sun is that it's all vanity. Vanity being the word he uses to say it's fleeting, it's meaningless. You think you get your hands on it only to realize it's not really there. It's like chasing the wind and trying to catch it in a net. You'll never actually have it. And this morning, as we consider Ecclesiastes chapter 5 and 6, the preacher is going to turn his gaze on money. What does it look like to have wealth? And to have wealth where you can have everything your heart desires. What good will wealth and money do? And the preacher is going to conclude that when you have everything, you will find that satisfaction was sold separately. That you can accumulate everything you thought you wanted and realize that in the end, there's actually always something more. That everything will never be enough. And you'll have to continue looking for more. Let's read chapter 5, starting in verses 8 and 9. The preacher says, if you see in a province the oppression of the poor and the violation of justice and righteousness, do not be amazed at the matter. For the high official is watched by a higher, and there are yet higher ones over them. But this is gain for a land in every way, a king committed to cultivated fields. The preacher begins his assessment of money by considering the political situation. He looks around the land and he sees oppression. He sees injustice. He sees the poor being exploited. And he writes to tell us, don't be surprised. Don't be surprised when you see this is the case. As he looks across the known world, he says, this is the way it is everywhere. He says, you should expect to find that too. When you look around and see injustice and oppression, don't be surprised. This is the way the world works. He says this is the way the world works because there is an official that is watched over by a higher official, and yet a higher official watching over him. And it's unclear exactly what he means by this. Maybe he means that there's always so much bureaucracy and red tape that the local official sees something is wrong, but he's got to go tell the regional guy, who's got to go tell the higher up guy over him. And in the mix of all the bureaucracy of government, we can't seem to really actually solve the local problems that are affecting people. Or maybe he means that the highest official is going to kind of, extract his pound of flesh from the regional guy. And so then to make sure he's not losing out, the regional guy is going to take his part from the local guy. And so the local guy is going to turn around and take his part from you. And there's no one left for you to turn around and take anything from. And it all just kind of moves its way up the food chain. And either way, whichever way he kind of means this phrase, the end result is the same. Corruption, injustice, and those that don't have anything are ending up with even less than they started with. Those that don't have anything are getting the short end of the stick. That power has a way of protecting power, but those that are oppressed and poor have no way to seek out help. He looks around and says, that's the way of the world. That's what money does in politics. It corrupts, it preserves itself, and it exploits the poor. He considers, though, in verse 9, that it would be gain for the land if there was a king committed to cultivated fields, if we could find a king, the highest official in the land, who truly cared about prosperity, if we could find a king that really cared to make sure that everyone had what they needed, that there was food for all, that would be good. That would be good for the land. But he doesn't seem to find that because he says, don't expect it. Expect oppression. Expect injustice. One of the things that Pastor Jim has pointed out as we have walked through the book of Ecclesiastes is that we have a better perspective on life than the preacher does. Because the preacher in Ecclesiastes only knows life under the sun. He doesn't know about life in the Son of God. And so as we consider these chapters here this morning, we're going to go sometimes a little farther and answer the question the preacher is asking, even though he won't answer it. And as we look around at the reality of political oppression, the reality of unjust governing officials, even as we know that you're right, we shouldn't be surprised. What does history tell us? But this is the way the world works. But we as Christians have a better hope. We can be thankful that there is a good king that cares about the prosperity of those who are under him in King Jesus. The psalmist in Psalm 22 writes that the afflicted will eat and be satisfied. Those who seek him shall praise the Lord. May your hearts live forever. All the ends of the earth shall remember and turn to the Lord. All the families of the nations shall worship before you, for kingship belongs to the Lord, and he rules over the nations. And so as we consider what the preacher here tells us, that government on earth will always leave us disappointed, we can take heart in knowing that we serve a good and just king who will ensure there's prosperity for all, that when King Jesus rules and reigns on this earth, no one will be going hungry. And even as we look around at government officials that are violating people's rights, they are taking people's money, and we think they shouldn't be allowed to get away with this. We know that one day every knee will bow to King Jesus, and they will give an account before him. That every governing official will one day have to give an answer to Jesus Christ for the way they use their power and authority, and that at the end of the day, no one is getting away with anything. And so we have hope even as we see the prevalence of injustice and oppression. The preacher doesn't take us there, however. Instead, after considering the lack of justice in the political realm, he turns to the professional realm. If we can't find hope in money in politics, maybe we can find it in our jobs. Maybe if we have enough success in business, then that's where our money, that's where our success, that's where it can find meaning. Let's read verses 10 to 17. He who loves money will not be satisfied with money, nor he who loves wealth with his income. This also is vanity. When goods increase, they increase who eat them. And what advantage has their owner but to see them with his eyes? Sweet is the sleep of a laborer, whether he eats little or much. But the full stomach of the rich will not let him sleep. There is a grievous evil that I have seen under the sun. Riches were kept by their owner to his hurt, and those riches were lost in a bad venture. And he is father of a son, but has nothing in his hand. And he came from his mother's womb, he shall go again. He shall take nothing for his toil, that he may carry away in his hand. This also is a grievous evil. Just as he came, so shall he go. And what gain is there to him who toils for the wind? Moreover, all his days he eats in darkness and in much vexation and sickness and anger. So as the preacher turns his gaze on the professional world, what he sees is that more money is more problems. And if you're looking for money to satisfy you, you will find that you never actually have enough. He who loves money will not be satisfied with money, nor he who loves wealth with his income. John Rockefeller is arguably the richest person to ever walk the earth. At the height of his empire with Standard Oil, 3 out of every $100 in America were his. 3% of GDP was owned by Rockefeller. To put that in perspective, that's arguably greater wealth than Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and Bill Gates have combined. So just to put in perspective the kind of wealth that Rockefeller had in his day. And toward the end of his life, a reporter asked him, no one's ever had money like you've had money. When was it enough? Like when did you have enough where you didn't feel like you needed any more? How much money is enough money so the rest of us know? Rockefeller said, just a little bit more. Another occasion, a reporter asked him, which million is the best million to make? Was it like when you hit your first million, you were a millionaire? Was it when you had 10 million or 100 million? Like which $1 million felt the most satisfying? And his answer was the next $1 million. No matter how much money you think it is going to satisfy you, it will always be a little bit more. When you get there, when you think just a little more success is enough, you'll find that in fact it was just a little bit more than you thought. On and on and on. He says that the more you have, the more people want from you. When goods increase, they increase who eat them. There's so many stories of those who have won the Mega Millions lotteries, and old high school friends and third cousins just start coming out of the woodworks, right? It's like, hey, we haven't talked in a while. Funny timing, right? The more you have, the more people will want from you. The more your business grows, the more employees you have, the more people you have depending on you. The more your family grows, the more kids and grandkids, the more people calling you for help. Even in the good blessings of life, even in prosperity, as prosperity increases, so do the problems you have to deal with. He says for this reason, the employee is going to sleep well. He's going to put in a good, honest, hard day's work. Sweet is the sleep of the laborer. And he's going to go to bed at night feeling satisfied with his hard day's work. But what about the employer? The full stomach of the rich will not let him sleep. He's kept up at night worrying about tomorrow. But what if someone calls out sick? What if that deal doesn't go through? How can I make payroll? How will we handle this problem with this new competitor that started up in town? And he's kept up at night, wondering, how do we address the problems of tomorrow? We see this in our personal life, right? As we have more problems increase with it. If you rent your home and you go home and you find that your water heater is leaking, you're going to call the landlord and say, hey, the water heater is leaking. Come take care of that. And you might need to move some stuff out of the way so it doesn't get soaked, but it's not really your problem. It's not your water heater. You're renting the space. And then you've saved up enough for a down payment, and you can own your own home, and you go home to your own house and find the water heater is leaking. Well, now that's your problem to fix. That is now your water heater. It is your puddle of water on the floor to figure out what to do with. How much more so if you own rental houses or rental properties? You go home and your water heater isn't leaking. But then someone calls you whose is. Hey, landlord, my water heater is leaking. Come deal with this. It's a blessing to have that rental income. But with it comes problems. And the preacher is just telling us, he says, if you think the growth and the success that you have will solve all your problems, it won't. It will multiply them. Problems will abound as you find success. And he says the ultimate problem is, you could lose it all. It could all be taken away from you. You could lose your riches in a bad venture. The stock market tanks, and there goes your 401k. And what control do you have over that? You invest money in a company, and they go out of business. It all can go away. And even if you don't lose it all, he says, guess what's going to eventually happen? You're going to die. And you're going to leave it all behind. And then you've lost it all. Every one of you is richer than John Rockefeller. He has no money. He's dead. Every single one of you is richer than John Rockefeller right now. And when you die, every living person is richer than you are. Because you can't take any of it with you. And so he's saying, are we looking for how we can accumulate things to find satisfaction and meaning? Are we treating our bank account like it's a scoreboard and the goal is just to run the number as high as we can? He says, then have fun looking at it. That's what he says. It's a joy to look at. Enjoy the sight of your eyes and seeing the big number in your bank account. That's all it's going to do for you. It won't satisfy you. It won't answer that ache you have inside. It won't ever be enough. The number is never high enough. And you can't take it with you. Naked you came into this world. You brought nothing with you, and you're not taking anything with you either. So what do we do about this? Because because this is all true. We know this is true. In the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus says the same thing. He says you can't take it with you. In chapter 6, he says, don't lay up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy, where thieves break in and steal. He's saying you can accumulate all you want, and guess what happens? It breaks down, it decays, you lose it, or you die and leave it all behind. He says, lay up for yourselves treasure in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroy, where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And so as Jesus is teaching about money, he warns us. He says, be careful. Don't think that piling it up all here is going to do anything for you. He says, lay up treasure in heaven. What does he mean by that? It means live a generous life. If you have success, don't think it all came from you. Leverage your success for the good of the kingdom. If you have positions in your company or in government, then use those things for the furtherance of the gospel. Use the wealth you have to see the gospel preached around the world, to see the nations come to Christ. Earn yourself an eternal reward, something that you can always enjoy. Don't think that running up the scoreboard here in your bank account is going to matter. When you get to heaven, no one's going to ask how much money is in your bank account. No one's going to care. No one's going to care what car you drive or how big your house was. It's, hey, with the time and resources and gifts that you had, what did you do for the kingdom? Are we leveraging what we have for the good of the kingdom, or are we trying to get it all for ourselves, trying to accumulate for ourselves? The preacher in chapter 6 is going to turn his attention to personal prosperity, to wealth and status. Ecclesiastes is not a chipper book. Personal confession, I don't really enjoy reading Ecclesiastes very much. It depresses me. I know that's the wrong thing for a pastor to say from the pulpit about the Bible. I don't enjoy it most of the time. It just makes me sad. Chapter 6 is exceptionally like that. Even above the other 5 chapters we've covered so far, chapter 6 is probably the darkest of the ones we've covered. This chapter reads like your dark inner thoughts when nothing is going your way and things are kind of spiraling. When life is just a long list of disappointments that has left you with questions about God and you just wonder what it's all about. And so as we read chapter 6, I just want to preface that by saying it's harsh and it reads like the dark spiral of why does all this matter anyway? Because he's asking that question. If all of this is true, then what does it all matter? So let's read chapter 6, 1 through 12. We'll come back to verses 18 to 20 of chapter 5 at the end. There's an evil that I've seen under the sun, and it lies heavy on mankind. A man to whom God gives wealth, possessions, and honor, so that he lacks nothing of all that he desires. And yet God does not give him the power to enjoy them, but a stranger enjoys them. This is vanity, a grievous evil. If a man fathers 100 children and lives many years, so the days of his years are many, but his soul is not satisfied with life's good things, and he also has no burial, I say that a stillborn child is better off than he. For it comes in vanity and goes in darkness, and in darkness its name is covered. Moreover, it has not seen the sun or known anything, yet it finds rest rather than he. Even though he should live 1,000 years twice over, yet enjoy no good, do not all go to the one place. All the toil of man is for his mouth, yet his appetite is not satisfied. For what advantage has the wise man over the fool? And what does the poor man have who knows how to conduct himself before the living? Better is the sight of the eyes than the wandering of the appetite. This also is vanity and striving after the wind. Whatever has come to be has already been named and is known what man is. And he is not able to dispute with one stronger than he. The more words, the more vanity. And what is the advantage to man? For who knows what is good for man while he lives the few days of his vain life, which he passes like a shadow? For who can tell man what will be after him under the sun? Verses 1 through 6 here of this chapter, he's making the point that having something isn't the same as enjoying it. He's saying, what good is it if you have everything you thought you wanted and you find that you aren't enjoying any of it? And he gives an example. He says, what if you lived 2,000 years and you had 100 sons and daughters and you had all the wealth and money and status and possession and honor that you could have hoped for, and you found out you still weren't happy? Then what would you do? Then where would you look? There's a man named Stephen Thomas. He lives in California. He has 7,002 Bitcoins in a digital wallet, which has a value of roughly $750 million. So not a small amount. Bitcoin wallets are password protected so that only you can get in and access them. The problem for Stephen is he has forgotten the password. The particular kind of wallet that he is keeping his in is called an iron key. And so if you enter the password incorrectly 10 times, it locks down forever and it can never be accessed again. And he has entered the wrong password 8 times. So he has 2 tries left to remember what his password was for this, or it is gone forever. And he talks about how he lays awake at night every night just trying to figure out what is the password for this thing so that I don't lose $750 million. He has it. He is certainly not enjoying it. That's an extreme example, obviously. But for him, what is this? It is just a source of stress. There is no enjoyment at all to be found in this wealth because he can't do anything with it. It's there. He owns it. He can't access it. It's not doing him any good. All it does is cause stress. And the preacher here in Ecclesiastes is saying that for most of us, life is like that. We have lots of things, but we don't ever get to enjoy them. Yes, technically you own them, but it doesn't really bring you any joy. And then this is where he kind of goes off the rails a little bit, right? He says if that's the way that life is, maybe a stillborn child is better off. If everyone's born and everyone dies and everything in the middle is just pain, then maybe you're better off skipping the middle part. One commentator summarized it. He said, better to miscarry at birth than miscarry throughout life. This is where he's going. This is the dark spiral of thoughts the preacher is thinking about. It's harsh, and maybe not in these terms, but we've had these things, right? We've laid awake. We've had these dark spirals of thoughts that take us to scary places if we were to really slow down and think about what thoughts are entering our mind. But when things seem to be going wrong, when nothing seems to be going our way, when life seems hopeless, we do wonder, why am I here at all? What is the point of any of this? I don't in any way want to diminish the pain of losing a child. I know that many of you in this room have gone through that. In fact, I want to offer a moment of hope here as he points out that the reason that he says maybe a stillborn child is better off is because that stillborn child still has hope in eternity. Amen. Even though it won't be known, we won't get to know that child, they won't get to know us, they have an eternal hope, and one day we will see them again. And the reality is no one chooses these things. You didn't choose to survive your birth. A stillborn child doesn't choose not to. You didn't choose to be born in a country where you have great prosperity. Other people didn't choose to be born in a country and born into extreme poverty. That the things the preacher is grasping with here are completely out of our control in most cases. People are born with more opportunities than others. And we can look around and we can spiral like the preacher does and let our dark thoughts get the better of us and wonder, what is the point of any of this at all? If eternity is more important anyway, then why should I care about the now? It's helpful in these moments to consider the one person who did choose when to be born and where to die. That Jesus Christ, who had all glory and honor in heaven, all status and wealth and possessions, chose to lay all that aside. He came to be born as a humble baby. He came into this world naked and with nothing. And though he didn't die at birth, he was born to die. and he knew when and where and why. He came to die for the sins of all those that will call on his name. He came to die not for anything that he had done wrong, but for everything that we had done wrong. For the rest of us, our death is involuntary. It will come for all of us. His death was voluntary. He went to the cross willingly to save us from ourselves and our sin. And so as we spiral in dark thoughts like the preacher and we wonder, what is the point of life? Why does any of this matter? Does my life have meaning? It's helpful to remember that Jesus Christ cared enough about our lives to come and lay down his own. And so as we are struggling like the preacher does, look to the Savior that says your life does matter. Your life does have meaning. Your life does have purpose. But once again, the preacher isn't ready to take us there yet. He closes by considering the dangers of a wandering appetite, saying that it's always wanting more. Your appetite is always traveling, never arriving. You probably all have heard of Pompeii, right? The famous Roman city buried by Mount Vesuvius when it erupted. And Pompeii is so interesting because of the amount of volcanic ash that fell in such a short period of time. It kind of preserved the city mid-panic. And so we can look at this city and see what everyone was doing as they watched Mount Vesuvius erupt above them. And many people they're hiding under tables or they're running for the city gates. There's one woman in Pompeii, though, who is frozen, trying to get to a bag of pearls on a table in a room. And she's just a few feet away, frozen permanently, right, as ash statue, just trying to grab this bag of pearls, as everyone else in the room is trying to run out the door. A wandering appetite. The things of this life becoming more important to us than life itself, as death is raining down all around. It wouldn't be worth it to run if I couldn't grab this thing first. Where's our appetite wandering? That if we just have this one more thing, life itself would be worth it. And if we didn't have it, it's so easy to look around and just think the next thing is the best thing. But the preacher wants us to remember everything is never enough. So what are we to do then? Let's jump back to the end of chapter 5 and look at verses 18 to 20. The preacher encouraged us to have a different perspective. He says, "Behold, what I have seen to be good and fitting is to eat and drink and find enjoyment in all the toil with which one toils under the sun, the few days of his life that God has given him. For this is his lot. Everyone also to whom God has given wealth and possessions and power to enjoy them, and to accept his lot and rejoice in his toil, this is the gift of God. He will not much remember the days of his life, because God keeps him occupied with the joy of his heart." When I was a kid, my mom would always take me and my sisters to the local public library. We would go every couple of weeks. We all had our own library card, and we would spend an hour or more at the library looking through books and picking out books. And we would check them all out, and we'd take them home, and we would read them all, and then back to the library in a couple of weeks to do it all over again. Return the books and pick out new ones. This was part of our regular summer routine for years, all through elementary school. Interesting thing, public library, right? You just show up, you have a little library card. I mean, I was like 7 and they gave me one, so it wasn't like that big of a requirement to get one. And they just let you take books. You don't pay for them. You just kind of say, yeah, I'll bring these back. And then you can just take this whole big stack of books home with you. And as kids, we would read them, and we loved them and enjoyed them, and we never owned them. You take them back and you give them back because they're not really yours. But you find tremendous joy in this, even though it's not yours. This is the perspective the preacher is encouraging us to have here at the end of chapter 5. He's saying, look around, enjoy it. Just don't get confused and think you own it. It is good and fitting to eat and drink and find enjoyment in all the toil which one toils under the sun. Enjoy a good meal. Enjoy a good drink. Enjoy your job. But don't find meaning in those things. Don't think that food's going to satisfy you. You'll be hungry again for the next meal. Don't think your job is going to satisfy you. They'll move on once you retire. However much you enjoy your job doesn't care about you that much. Whatever industry means so much to you, you don't mean that much to the industry. But he's saying enjoy it. Just don't think it's yours. Hold it open-handed like a library book. Find pleasure and meaning and satisfaction in it, but recognize it's a gift from God. It's not some kind of personal gain that you have. It's a gift. It's given freely. One day you have to give it back. It says in verse 20, he will not much remember the days of his life because God keeps him occupied with joy in his heart. He's saying if you can have a right perspective on the here and now, if you can enjoy the things that God is giving you, it'll help kind of block out a little bit of the pain of looking at what about the future and what about the past and what could I have done differently and what can I do next? And he's saying, whoa, take a breath. Look at what you have right now. Look at the gifts God has given you right now. Enjoy those. The proper answer to the what ifs about the past and the future is just enjoying what God has given you right now. Consider that none of it's yours, that you're just passing through. And we should use these gifts, we should use these things that we have from God to bless others, to bless the church, to reach those who do not know Jesus Christ. As we go through Ecclesiastes, and as I close out this morning, the preacher wants us to have a realistic view of life under the sun. That all the things that we look at, we're always convinced that we are the exception. Money couldn't satisfy everyone else, but money will satisfy me. A bigger house didn't make my neighbor happier, but it will make me happier. That nicer car is actually the answer for this midlife crisis. I am the exception to the rule. And the preacher says, no, you're not. Enjoy the gifts you have in the present. Recognize the good gift giver and give all praise and honor to him. So this morning, if you're here and this is where you find yourself, you've placed your trust in Christ, but you're constantly convinced that the next thing is going to be what ultimately satisfies you, I just want to invite you to listen to the preacher here. Listen to what he has to say. He's tried it all. He's been there. He's done that. He said it's not going to satisfy. The only hope and satisfaction that you're going to find in this life is in Christ Jesus. It's in putting your faith and trust in what is eternal, not in what is fleeting. If you're here this morning and you don't know Christ, perhaps you recognize what the preacher is talking about there in chapter 6. Just that dark spiral, those questions, that depression with no answers and no light at the end of the tunnel. The hope that we're invited into is that life does have meaning. It has meaning in Jesus Christ. And life in Jesus Christ, life in